Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Martha Castle, and today I am thrilled that we are hosting our annual Why I Love First Parish service. So we are going to hear from three of our own members today who will share what they love about this wonderful congregation. Welcome to First Parish Unitarian and Universalist of Medfield. Our membership is drawn from many local communities, and the congregation first gathered in 1651. This historic meeting house was built in 1789 on the unceded ancestral lands of the Wampanoag. We welcome you to this place. Here we search for truth and understanding. We celebrate life and contemplate its mysteries. We share healing and wholeness. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, we welcome you to this congregation. And I'm going to invite Kirsten DeBate to come up for the chalice lighting.
Today's chalice reading is by Anita Farber Robertson. Welcome to a day of hope and promise, to a place of peace and comfort, to a journey toward truth and justice, and to a community of love and courage that will help us along the way.
Thank you, Eva. Welcome to this time of seeking and finding. For it is in the coming together here that we celebrate who we are and who we are yet to be. Come, let's worship together.
Oh, come together in truth. Oh, come together in peace. Oh, come together in joy and sharing. Come together in knowing and caring. Come together, oh, come together, oh, come together in love.
So now we are going to sing hymn 16. Please rise as you're able to and join us. 'Tis a gift to be simple. Thank you, please be seated. We are now going to have a time for all ages. And I would like those folks with us who are young in age or in spirit to please come on up and join us.
I will also light a candle of remembrance for those loved ones that we may have lost recently or even long ago.
And now we're going to sing our children out to their RE class.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
So let us now join in the spirit of prayer and of meditation. Let us be quiet without and within. Let the stillness be in us. Let the silence hold us. May we find the deep places of the soul and begin to let go of the distractions which plague us. May we let go of irritation, calm the confusion which inhibits us, let go of fear. The quiet is within us, the stillness is in us, and the silence will hold us. There are deep places in the soul. Here we may find peace. Please join me in a moment of shared silent meditation. Spirit of truth, the light of God, we celebrate thy wondrous ways. Unite our hearts in sacred love, in faith and hope and charity. Amen. All right, so this is it, folks. This is our First Parish, Why We Love First Parish sermon. I was very thrilled to take part of this early on in my joining the community, and we have a wonderful selection of our congregants that we're going to come up and share their own personal stories, because First Parish means a lot to all of us, and we are drawn to it for very different reasons. And today we get to hear from a few of us on what those reasons are. So first, I would like to invite Tian Jennings up.
try to get this right. Good morning, everyone. Okay. So when I think, can everyone hear me all right? I feel like maybe not for tall people, I can't tell. Okay. So if I'm hunched over, that is why. But yeah, when I think about why I love First Parish, I think about how I got started here, which was kind of through the side door, or in this case, through the U-House door. I first noticed First Parish through attending a meeting at the U-House. It was an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I've been going to AA meetings since I was 17, and it's always been a central part of my spiritual life. So when Wes and I moved here about 7 years ago, I did what I always do when we move to a new place, which is find the local AA meetings and figure out which ones I enjoy the most. And there's a Saturday 8 a.m. AA meeting here at the U-House that I started going to, and I really liked it. The meeting mostly takes place in the sitting room toward the back, that's closest to the kitchen downstairs. But when it's more crowded, some of the seats spill over into the adjoining room, kind of right off to the left when you walk into the front door of the U-House. And when I first started going, Everett was about 1.5 years old, and I was pregnant with Zenith. So it somehow felt like it took a superhuman effort to get to the meeting on time. And for that reason, I would often arrive a few minutes late and end up sitting in that spillover area. And from those seats, it's a little harder to hear the people sharing in the main room. So sometimes I would lose focus and my mind would wander. And I started to notice the posters on the wall, and one stuck out to me. And I got permission, but I actually borrowed it, so it's just easier to see here. I guess from doing Time for All Ages and kid stuff, I've been doing lots of props now, so I don't mind that. So in case anyone can't see, this was the one I would end up continuing to stare at. So basically, just for anyone who can't see it, the 7 things it says on there is: we believe each person is important, be kind in all you do, we're free to learn together and search for what is true, all people need a voice, build a fair and peaceful world, and we care for Earth's lifeboat. And I think this poster is intended for children, but it really spoke to me. I thought about how I really believe all of those things and wanted to practice them in my own life, but I didn't think I'd be able to find that in a church or a place of worship. And as a child, I was given a lot of free choice in religious exploration because my parents came from different religious backgrounds. My father is Jewish, and he came from a long line of Reformed Jews, originally from Germany, Poland, and Russia, who emigrated to New York City. But he mostly identifies as culturally Jewish and is not religiously observant. And my mother, on the other hand, was born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah, and came from a long line of strict Mormons on both sides. Her parents chose to leave the Mormon church after getting married, and she was encouraged by her father to explore some of the other faiths around them in Salt Lake City, which at that time were mostly Christian churches. And I knew that finding a spiritual home was important to me, and I did my own exploring as a teenager and a young adult. I attended a Presbyterian church for a while and helped with interfaith services when I was a student at Vassar College, but none of them felt like the right fit for the long term. So this is all to say that when I saw these things posted on the wall of the U-House, I started thinking that there might be more out there for me to explore. After a couple of years of going to these Saturday morning AA meetings, I realized that I didn't have to just keep reading the posters on the U-House. I could come check out the big show on Sunday mornings here in this main building. So I started coming to services on Sundays, and what I first noticed about First Parish was how calm and welcoming it was here. It felt like a lovely respite from the rush of daily life, and it was a real treat to be able to sit quietly and stare at the beautiful stained glass window. And then as I continued to come regularly on Sundays and then became a member, I got to see the rich and vibrant community that exists here. I've so enjoyed getting to know all of you. I've been struck by all the kind, intelligent, creative, and generous people that make up this congregation. And now I'm realizing that coming to the service on Sundays is just one part of what this community has to offer. For example, as Everett showed in his what he likes about FPUU, Wes, Everett, Zenith, and I went to game night a few weeks ago, and we had the best time. I thought it was a kind of an adult event, never having been to it before, so we almost didn't go, and then Marshall told us more about it, and we decided to come, and I thought we would stay just for like a little bit and probably head home by like 7 or 7:30 and to get our kids ready for bed. Well, instead, we all got totally into the games, the food, and the conversations, and before I knew it, we were basically the last people out as they were turning out the lights at 10 p.m., and the next morning on the way to the service here, Everett asked, "Can we go to game night again next year?" So So we're on. Count us in, Marshall. So when I think about why I love First Parish, I'm reminded of how much I get out of really becoming involved in a community. And if you stick around for long enough, this involvement can really start to kind of sneak up on you. For instance, with that AA meeting, I kept going on Saturdays and trying to get there on time. And eventually, the founder of the group moved out of the area and asked me to be the chairperson. So now I'm the first one there, setting up and sitting in the main room, and I can hear everyone when they share. And it's the same thing when I come here, too. I first came in because of what was on the poster, and now I keep coming for the people and the community, and I'm looking forward so much to continuing to get to know you all better. So thank you for creating such a welcoming place.
Well put. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. I do love these stories. Fritz, will you join us now and share your story?
Good morning, everyone. The topic I was given to speak about when Becca called me was not why I love First Parish, but why I am at First Parish. Why am I here? Well, that's a big existential question, and I'll skip that. But that still leaves two separate, if related, questions. One, why am I a Unitarian Universalist? And two, why am I part of this specific church community of Medfield, Massachusetts? On the first question, I became a Unitarian Universalist in 1986 when I had young children and was looking around for a church in which they might be raised. Having been baptized and confirmed as an evangelical Lutheran in Germany, where we watched Billy Graham videos in confirmation class, by the time I lived in this country, I had not been in a church for decades, except for concerts. So when I attended my first Unitarian Universalist service, I was astounded by the sermon, which consisted entirely of UU jokes, delivered by a woman minister in her 8th month of pregnancy. A woman minister, my feminist heart rejoiced. Not quite by coincidence, she told exactly 10 jokes. Question: what is a Unitarian Universalist? Answer: an atheist with children. I was hooked. Right then and there, I started on my journey to discover the spirit and the principles that animate the UU faith. Not theological dogmas, what you're supposed to believe, but action principles, what you should do. For instance, respect the worth and dignity of every human being. On the second question, Katrin and I moved to Medfield in 2007, and since I wanted to attend a UU church, this was simply the one in town. Well, it wasn't quite so simple. We had also gone to the UU church in Framingham when we lived there, and that was a very different kettle of fish. A large congregation, more Christian-like in its services, with a formidable crowd at coffee hour, comfortable with its own social relations and not terribly eager to talk to visitors. We stopped going after a few Sundays. Medfield, well, I don't need to point out the obvious. Small, friendly, extremely welcoming, and, importantly, self-reflexive about its ways, not hidebound. And as we were to find out, not willing to paper over differences of opinion, questioning, open-minded, self-critical. So, we've been coming here for over 15 years, and not only have we not been ignored, but we have received unconditional help and affection by this congregation, not only during my recent illness, but all along the way. So, I should probably be effusive about this, but I'll stop myself here. I am a reserved Franconian after all, not given to displays of emotion. Instead, allow me to talk briefly about something a bit more complicated in general, something that many UU struggle with: spirituality. Spirituality, what do I mean by that? If I believed in a deity I could pray to, the answer to the question might be self-evident. Alas, I don't. And it isn't. Is spirituality the Rorschach blot on which we project our own desires? To explain what I see, let me pick up some of the pieces I have salvaged from my Christian upbringing. One of these pieces comes from a place in the New Testament, Matthew 18, quote, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them." I have always connected this line to my second piece, the story in Luke 24, where Jesus, on the day of his resurrection, does in fact appear to 2 of his disciples as they are walking to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles from Jerusalem, depressed by his crucifixion and by the apparent failure of their cause. Jesus reveals himself to them, he comforts them, and he tells them not to forget what they have learned from him. If you look at the historical Jesus not as a deity, but as a teacher and prophet, which is what UUs do, if you strip this language of its transcendental truth claim, you can read it as an explanation of how spirituality works. It emerges where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. Gathered, that is, around a set of values. Values that in the biblical story happen to be represented by the name of Jesus. When I reflect on this language, I am reminded that spirituality is not and cannot be an individualistic endeavor or experience. It is something that occurs in community and requires community to sustain itself. So, if we do not come together in the name of a particular deity, we come together in truth, as we sing every Sunday. We come together in peace, in joy and sharing. We come together in knowing and caring. And we sum it up in the last line, we come together in love. That is my definition of spirituality, the coming together. And it's the knowing and caring that finally connects me to this church family. Thank you.
Fritz, thank you so much. That was incredible. I really appreciate it. All right, now our last speaker today is Gabby Harrison. I'm very grateful that you're here in person. There was a chance I was going to read your session, but it's not as good without you, so.
I wore my lead shoes to get here, so don't tell anybody. The police were everywhere this morning. I feel a little bit funny. When Becca asked me to speak, she said, Gabby, just 3 to 5 minutes. And I tried so hard to keep it short, why we still support and love First Parish. So I felt a little bit like Charlie Brown, 1, 2, 3, 4, sort of counting the words in an essay. But please know that had I known that I could go on forever, which is very UU, we don't really abide by the rules, I would have said much, much more. But I think I'm looking out onto a sea of faces of friends and people I've known for a really long time. A few new faces, but all people that clearly want to be here. And thank you for listening to all of us. I'm building a little bit on what Tian said, certainly on what Fritz has said. So here I go, 1, 2, 3, 4. So For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gabby Harrison, and I'm here representing my husband, Warner, who is still at the barbershop convention where we spent the weekend. We did great. I am so harmonized and full of music that if you step close enough, I'm sure you can still sense all of that. And I'm also here for my growing family, who many of you know. We now number 14, including my granddog, and all of them still consider themselves members of this church, or at least friends of this church. And it's really quite special. Warner and I have been members of this School of Cool Fish. Marshall, I was listening on Zoom last week as you were talking about it, and I just absolutely adored your image. So we've been swimming around here since about 1984 or so. I can't remember very well. And like some of the fish, we are now vintage members also. And I have a great joy. I didn't get up and light a candle because I knew I would have a chance to speak now. I asked to share why we still support and come to this church. And for that, I'm very grateful to Becca, who is off in baseball land, I think, or something like that. But I have a concern, and I already spoke to that I could go on forever and ever, and each of our children shared things with me, and it would just be too much. But please know you have touched a lot of lives in all you say and do. For my 70th birthday, I received a book from a group of other vintage church ladies, and the title of the book is I'm Too Young to Be 70 and Other Delusions. And it's by Judith Viorst, who is not known as being a very deep writer, but something you give as sort of a joke gift, when in fact she actually has written some pretty significant stuff. But in any case, this is one of these, with brief little stories about what it's like when you cross that divide. So especially captivating to my thoughts and musings was the little piece about the secret of staying married. And as Warner and I approach our 50th anniversary soon, it really is quite a feat to be together with the same person for such a long time. But after Becca asked me to speak today, I considered these words again through a different window, in a different light, and thought that they applied to my relationship with the church. The entry reads, "Still married after all these years? It's not a mystery. We are each other's habit and each other's history." When our son Tim was 6 and Emily was 4, Warner and I wanted to find a church where we could share our religion with our children. We wanted them to have a belief system to help them navigate through their lives. So, like Tian mentioned, it was the children that really brought us inside the church. Warner, a born and bred liberal Unitarian from the Plandome Church on Long Island and Friends of Carolyn Veach, and I was a seeker of a religion I could trust. We tried a lot of the local options in Medfield, but we couldn't find the right fit. Nothing felt right for both of us together that we could commit to. Then one sunny, beautiful September morning, we happened to be walking down North Street on the day of the Emperor Onion Fair. And here our history began. It was the Emperor Onion Fair and the joy and the congregation and all that was involved in creating this event for the local community. Dee Ward, who is one of the older members of the church. I don't even know where Dee is anymore, actually. She found out I could knit, and she wanted knitters because the project was to knit mittens that had actual lamb's wool inside, and she had gotten a lot of lamb's wool from someone who raised sheep here in Medfield, but she needed knitters. Okay, we were friends. And then someone else found out that Warner was sort of a handy man, and he had a pretty good voice, and we had 2 children, soon to be 3. I sort of looked as Sarah looks, so beautiful. And we could bring the 3 more people into the fold. We were invited in enthusiastically. That proverbial green cup, I don't even know, do we give that out still to new people? I remember I came 2 years ago and someone approached me and gave me a green cup. It was wonderful. That's how enthusiastic this congregation is. What really got us into it was our first services that we attended as a family were the debate-like services of Andrew Natsios and Barney Frank talking about the separation of church and state. I don't know if you people know who they were, but Barney Frank was sort of an outspoken, very adorable politician, and he stood over here, and Andrew Natsios was over there, and they talked back and forth. They did not cross the aisle, but they just went back and forth, and it was wonderful. And this, to me, seemed like, Warner and I looked at each other, and we talked about it afterwards and said, this is a church of ideas, of talk back, of intelligent conversation, and it seemed to be full of like-minded people. We were in. We took on the challenge of becoming members of FPUU. As we got more involved, I felt a bit like Bartholomew Cubbins sometimes, wearing many hats at the same time during one service. There weren't a lot of people to do all the jobs that needed to be done, and I remember one Sunday I had to find a babysitter for childcare downstairs. I was doing coffee. I actually was giving the service. And then afterwards, my family had signed up to sort of be church cleaners to help the church mice make things happen. So it was a very busy Sunday, and Warner and Tim were going to repoint the front stairs, and were looking for people to go. So this was a church that could use everything we had to offer, and we always enjoyed doing it as a family. And we really appreciated the fact that other people did the same thing. This was so much more than just going to church. We loved the unorthodox services like Upsy Daisy for Easter. That was a wonderful, wonderful service because you sometimes have a little bit of a difficulty with Easter. And there was a minister who gave a sermon, and he stood up here and sang, "I am the great Majesto," and all the miracles and wonderful things. And it was so engaging. And then, like you, we learned more about what UU ministers do in the summer. And you may remember, David, that there was this piece of paper I always carried around with all of the UU jokes. And it really, we used to have outside services, and you had invited me several times to get up and read all of the UU jokes and let people know why Unitarian ministers are given the summer off. And that's because they're the only ones God can trust. So that was that little piece. And then most of them find jobs on the Cape selling ice cream. So that's why Cape Cod churches are open in the summer, because all of the ministers have gone there. And this just sort of went on and on. So it's important to keep a sense of humor alongside your religion. And our kids learned about church across the street. I don't know if that is still part of the curriculum. I know that Warner's mother taught that curriculum when Warner was a little boy in the UU church. And we went on the best field trips to other places of worship. We went into Cambridge, we spent time with the Buddhists, and we always tried to pair a lunch that went along with the religion. So we went out for more exotic foods than peanut butter sandwiches and apples after our trip. One year we went into the Christian Science Center, and that was a real eye-opener for the kids. They had us attend a Sunday school session, they gave us a special service, and the kids kind of felt like, are they trying to convert us? We really had to process everything that had happened there, and they couldn't understand a lot of their teachings, and I think the general consensus at that time was, I'm glad we're UUs. And during Sunday school, we got to explore how miracles abound, which was also another old curriculum that talks about science and how miracles are all around us as part of the world we live in. And what we did is we cut apples and saw the stars inside apples, and then we used the apples to make an apple crisp or something like that. And after Christmas, we made ice cream and crushed up our candy canes and threw it in the ice cream, and that's how we studied crystals and crystal formation. And ice cream is delicious, even if every single crystal is different. Isn't that like our congregation? Every crystal is different. And we just loved making up Sunday school classes because at that point we didn't have a written curriculum, so it was a real sort of fun challenge. And our kids told us that their friends wished they could come to our church because it sounded like fun. And fun it was for us, for all of us as a family, for about 20 years of Sundays. And now we had Barbara with us, and very soon after we signed the book. Barbara, in fact, was almost born during the installation of one of our ministers. I was in labor, I was singing in the choir, and I had on, I think we were wearing choir robes at that time, and I'm up there, and all of a sudden I just sort of reached back to the bass section and squeezed Warner's hand and said, and we just hoped that I wasn't going to progress further up here. It was really funny, but we laugh about that a lot. This church gave the kids so many opportunities for public speaking, performance, and speaking up and out. They grew in an atmosphere of unconditional approval for their efforts to participate. All of you have heard Emily play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on a violin, and listened and smiled and clapped and made her feel wonderful, and she hung on with it and ended up being quite an accomplished violinist. Tim played piano when we didn't have a pianist, and all kinds of really fun stuff, and it could all be done within the confines and the embrace of the church. So we thank the church. All of our kids came of age in this church and grew into reasonably successful adults, independent, confident, critical thinkers, and generally good people. What more could parents want? Mission accomplished, FPUU. The children graduated from the church, from high school, from college, and we had to move on to other responsibilities that called for our attention. Both my mother and Warner's mother lived out of town and needed a lot of help, so people didn't see us anymore. But we never really left this church. We still considered the congregation family. So why do we keep supporting and coming now? I watch on Zoom. You don't see us here very often. We're often in Syracuse with my mother, who is 96, or doing other things. We spend a lot of time in the Church of the Blue Sky. I live in the middle of the beautiful woods, and we enjoy and are stewards of the beautiful forest around us. But we keep considering ourselves members of this congregation, and we keep supporting. Warner believes strongly that we need to keep the church going so that the option for a liberal religious experience remain available to others as it was for us, which speaks sort of to what you said, Fritz. I believe that I need to hold on to the sense of family and community that was created when we were new, both to Medfield and this church. I need to know that I can borrow Eve Potts Foley Food Mill anytime, that I can call Jeanette for help with something. She can give me seeds to make all kinds of fantastic creative projects with my grandchildren. I need to know that I can call Rev Dave and say, my daughter decided to get married in our backyard. Would you be interested in coming to marry them? And he actually knew who we were, and that was wonderful. He hadn't seen us very much. So I need to know that I can come into a Sunday service and sit in this beloved sanctuary and stare at the alligator in the muscle shirt, which was brought to our attention by one of our members. And the alligator in the muscle shirt is still there, if you can see it, in the center. And it makes me feel like I belong here. It's important. It's very important to me to be here. This church has become part of my habit.
Thank you so very much. All right, so now we are inviting Don Rolfe and Duncan Glover to please come up for our morning's offering.
Thank you. Having come to this church for a number of years now, I've gained a greater appreciation for that verse that says, it's far more blessed to give than to receive. And that applies not only to our financial contributions, but to our gifts of time, volunteering, pitching in, helping out. And when I see all the good things that First Parish does that helps make life better, it warms my heart. So now let us take the offering. Please give generously, and you shall be blessed.
All right, now I'm going to ask you to please rise if you are able to and join us in singing our last hymn, number 205, Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've countless days to sing God's praise, and when we first begun.
You can. Thank you. Now for our closing words. May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and most righteous that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest so that we may give ourselves to the work of the world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move.
Until we meet again, we share our sacred trust to live and die, to do the right, and grow in loving care. Amen.
Until we meet again, we share a sacred trust. To live in light, I apologize. I will now extinguish the chalice. It was so poignant before, so. But may its light and warmth stay in our hearts until we meet again. Here ends our worship. Let our service begin.